I will introduce the next speaker, who's going to be from the web. MITAV, please put Lyndsey Walsh up on the screen. Yeah, nope, that's the wrong one. So we want Lyndsey Walsh's presentation now. I hope she's ready to go. That's her. So Lyndsey is an incredibly interesting, yet another pluripotent character who has a fantastic take on a lot of things, including what we were talking about earlier in the panel, which has to do with, can you safely use olfaction or other, let's say, genetic tools to predict people's outcomes? And can you modulate how much their health insurance and what kind of medical pre-treatments must they take? But today she's going to talk to you about something very different, which has to do with the oozing horrors of the body. She's into the horror movies, and she interviewed me for a podcast that was really, really weird and strange and lovely and delightful. And it asked questions such as, well, what are why are we so horrified of some of the smells that come off of bodies? What does it mean? Where do we? What is this body horror, and how does it connect to olfaction? I think this is going to be very interesting. Lyndsey, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you, Andreas, for having me here, and also for Osmocosm and the whole team. So I'm Lyndsey. I'm an artist and researcher based in Germany. The work I'm presenting today is based off some of the research that I've done in my fellowship with the University Underground's horror program led by Aggie Haynes, as well as various different aspects of things I've done also in collaboration with ITMO University Art and Science Center in Russia and the BioArt Society in Finland, as well as the Unisys Cat Cluster of Excellence and Mal Anders in Germany. And today I'm going to be talking about leakiness and horror, and really looking at this question of what is it about bodily leakiness that generates horror, because like all bodies leak inherently. Like we need to take in fluids and release fluids and different materials. It's all part of metabolizing things, as well as for cells to constantly release different waste products outside of them. And when thinking about horror and what makes that such an uncomfortable part of the leakiness of bodies, it's really getting to the basis of these ruptures in what form is. And this is something that Karl Rosenkranz, who's a German philosopher, declares that like this rejection of form, or that form is permeable, this formlessness, to be an aesthetically ugly quality. And going on off of that, what we talked a lot about during our horror fellowship with University Underground, what Aggie Haynes also talked about, is that this sense of abjectness is a constantly recurrent theme within what horror is. And to quote Julia Kristeva, the abject refers to human reaction, horror, vomit, to a threatened breakdown in meaning caused by the loss of distinction between subject and object, between self and other. And this is from Kristeva's book, Powers of Horror. And disease in itself takes on these sort of ruptures, violating like illusions of what form is, and that our bodies have these stable forms, as well as boundaries between self and other. And also building off of this, so like we have disease, waste, and the body and culture. Leaky bodies and the disease bodies really are objectified within culture, and also within medicine and the culture of medicine and science as a cultural curiosity within themselves. Typically within medical literature and also within the history of medicine, they're viewed within this lens of the abnormal that in turn is used to then define what is a normal body. Additionally, when we have waste, waste itself became sort of a great harm to public health since the late 18th century, and this kind of turned over. And also nowadays we have these issues of who gets to own your bodily waste, especially when you're in a hospital, and what sort of rights you have to said waste. And so some of the work that I was doing around, which inspired this sort of smell-based facet of the work around horror, I was doing a project called Prophylaxis at ITMO's University Art and Science Center in St. Petersburg, Russia, back in 2021, where I was looking at the sort of cultural connotations of having a genetic mutation, and sort of I have a BRCA1 positive mutation. That means I could eventually get breast cancer, as well as a number of other different kinds of cancers, and how the image of this disease being projected on my healthy body really changes these conversations we have about what disease is and what leakiness is even is, and how bodies are inherently existing. And this research project ended up becoming the artwork that I made called Self-Care, which was commissioned by the Bio-Art Society in Finland for their M/Other Becomings program. And within this work, I sought to take this diseased other and this sort of leakiness and sort of expand upon it by building a wearable binder to also question the gender politics around breast cancer, as I'm non-binary, and to then learn how to care for this disease and incorporate this sort of leakiness within caring-based practices within myself. But while I was also in Russia, I was working with a scientist named Svetlana Usevich. And Svetlana had this wonderful talent to be able to smell when a cancer cell culture was healthy and doing well. So when cancer can proliferate and be at its best, Svetlana was really able to distinguish these scents, which was quite interesting to me to smell that sort of leakiness in a particular way as a beneficial scent. And it was a scent that was described as smelling good. And looking at smelling and sort of these leakiness characteristics, a lot of the work I was doing with self-care and prophylaxis was looking at the surveillance of the body and why some bodies are more surveilled oftentimes than others. And in the research, Lisa Cartwright writes that researchers in breast cancer in particular characterize breast as an elusive object that was too feminine, too soft, too regular in composition, too changeable to image clearly. And so rather than adapting all these technologies that have been made to look inside the body to the object, which are breasts, radiologists more often attempted to adapt breasts to the technique. And so women's bodies in general were regarded as inherently resistant to a technology that could save their lives. And this has actually caused throughout history many women to have died from these inadequacies in sort of detection and also this sort of weird surveillance relationship you get. So you have some bodies that have these leakiness and disease potentials that then are also surveilled more than other bodies in particular. And so with my horror fellowship, I was kind of looking at other genetic-based diseases and how that smell and feeling of horror was sort of communicated between the two. And part of this was like prototyping different types of perfumes based on the smells of different diseases. The image here is one that I made for trimethylaminoria, which people who have this sort of genetic mutation end up having a fishy quality of their body odor. And also positioning it within this sort of designer perfume aesthetics really challenged these notions of genetic designer babies versus kind of genetic mutations and who's a mutant. And then after this, I ended up opening this dialogue up to public discourse where I did many workshops on smell and had people sort of trying to distill their own body odor into a perfume, really taking root in the wonderful horror novel around smell, perfume. And within these workshops as well, a constant conversation that came up was talking about how odor can haunt a place or a person in a way. At times, I think someone mentioned in one of the workshops that their partner was going through a very anxious period of time and ended up sitting in a chair repeatedly during this period of their life. And that chair ended up being haunted by the smell of anxiety that could not be washed out. And so these ideas that smells can haunt us is quite interesting, and that this leakiness, this specific kind of bodily leakiness, has this power to be very emotive and create sort of a discomfort within us as well. And that is my presentation so far. All the work today is part of an ongoing project, so the research is constantly being done on me trying to work and synthesize different odors and diseases. But yeah, I can be in contact via email or on social media here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lyndsey. And I mispronounced you earlier, I'm sorry. So would someone have a question for them? Okay, I'll start it up. I want to know how it went with the personal body odor distillation. I don't know where you can see me from, but that sounds fantastic. Specifically, I want to know if you are aware whether in distilling your own body odor, do you recognize it? Do you say, oh, that's me, but more intense? Or do you say, oh, wow, is that me?
Yeah, so it was really interesting that people didn't always recognize themselves, but also they didn't even recognize the amount of things that go into making a body odor. For example, we were using t-shirts and socks, and it was either lots of people brought their own t-shirts, and so their body odor and their scent wasn't just what their body smelled like, it was like the detergent they were using was all culminating in what their smell was, which was quite more of a cultural scent rather than just the biological as well. Yeah, and it was also really interesting to have people then bring these odors home with them and have people who are close to them smell them and see if they were attracted to it or not, or because some people found their own scent to be quite disgusting and they didn't like it. But yeah, those reactions were quite interesting.
So let's dig in a little bit more. So people found their own smell disgusting. While normally, I think the common wisdom is that you cannot really find your own smell all that disgusting, right? People, first of all, they habituate to it. You can't find the intensity, and then, but you're saying that upon distillation, upon concentration, becomes disgusting to yourself, right?
For some people, it was quite. It wasn't like a pleasant odor. They were also, I think, the whole process of it created this element of disgust as well that probably also elicited these perceptions of disgust. Because once again, most of the workshops I did, we were being sweaty and running around. So that in particular, I think also helped with this idea that the odor itself had this disgusting quality. I imagine the context of the workshop and the distillation process may change people's perceptions as well.
Great talk. This is Adam Feldman. So one of the person who runs medical detection dogs, who Andreas and I has collaborated with, she tells this story of her dog. She had a cancer she hadn't known about, and before she or anyone knew about it, the dog came up and sort of bumped against that body part where the malignancy was. And so it's really interesting. It goes to where maybe this leakiness that, that for some reason that scent even came from that body part, and not just in urine or blood or, in a normal way that we would think about diagnosing it. But.
And Adam, thank you for being polite as a doctor, but you don't have to hide the body part because she has written a book about it. Yeah. So it was breast cancer that Claire Guest got diagnosed essentially because her dog started bumping up against her chest. And she's actually going to speak here. She's one of our keynotes. And she was our keynote last year also. So she's fantastic. And what she describes to me was really interesting. She said that because she's such a good animal behaviorist, she noticed that the dog's behavior when bumping against her chest was neither feeding nor mating behavior. The dog was interested and compelled to bump with her snout, but it was not interested in eating it or mating with that body part. And that was odd to her because she hadn't seen that before. So why is the dog bumping against that part? So it's a great big question. We have an idea that there's this canine transmissible venereal tumors. That's perhaps why dogs are automatically attracted to cancers. This is a disease that they carry on their genitals, that it's a cancer that is actually a separate organism that lives on the dog but has a different DNA. And how it gets passed on is it emits odorants that compel other dogs to put their snout on the genitals of the infected dog, and that's how it passes from dog to dog. It's only one of 4 mammals that can have a transmissible cancer. And we are not sure why untrained dogs are attracted or compelled to bump against cancerous regions of the body. That's a big mystery, but this could be part of it, but we don't know for sure. But trained dogs, they will go after any cancer, any cancer you train them on. So yes, there's another question from the audience.
So Susanna, she asks, how do you collect people's smells? How do you do that?
That's a great question. So in the workshop, the current method that I've kind of established so far is that originally people were wearing white t-shirts and we would perform these like very laborious exercises, of course, fitting it to whatever accommodations people need for their different abilities. And then that would then in turn also then having people select to like wear this item of clothing for an extended period of time as well, so that their odor could have the best chance to sink possibly into it. Surprisingly, using cotton, it gets a lot of scent. I've found in these different types of workshops, but then I've also switched it to actually with the advice of Andreas to be using socks as well, to see how that would change. Also change how people's perception of it, because socks, imagine like people think stinky smells and stuff like that. So I wanted to see people's reactions to that. So using both of these, and then I would use a steam distillation method to sort of kind of get some type of concentration from it. And surprisingly, it is quite effective, I have found. You wouldn't think that you would get that strong of an odor from doing a steam distillation with people wearing t-shirts, but you do get something, and it's strong enough for people to recognize, which was really interesting to me. This is of course something that I'm trying to like further develop as a protocol of sorts, but so far it's been quite an interesting process to get nice results.
Hi, thank you. I have a question. Have you done a category of the top 10 worst smells, for instance? I want to know, yeah, have you categorized which is the top one, the worst smell, and then, you know, a top 10? I mean, we have top 10 songs. I mean, everybody gets the best, the favorite on top. Have you done the opposite?
I haven't. I mean, I think it's so subjective and personal. And like when I think of like top 10 worst smells, I used to work in a morgue doing research on dead whales, which is a long other story. But the smell of a dead whale is like my top worst scent, because it's basically whales are stinky, rotting candles. And nothing smells as bad as that. But I feel like everyone's experience, maybe this is something at the conference that could be a cool poll to have, to see what everyone's like worst smell is.
Well, Andreas is doing an experiment on Saturday, so.
But it is done with generally pleasant smells. Do we have other questions from the audience, perhaps? No, we're good. Yes, no, okay. Lyndsey, we thank you so very much. Please hang out and